Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome for the Plug Talk Made in Africa. We are very happy to welcoming you today to discuss about the energy transitions. It's our second Plug Talk about energy transitions. We had the opportunity 3 weeks ago to address the industrial challenge for Africa and the importance to implement a new source of production of energy. And we have been developing all the importance of the attractivity for territory to propose energy productions. We know that in African continent, the resources are immense, but oil, wind, solar, water, and mixed energy. There is a lot of opportunity today to produce energy and to make the African continent a leader in the energy productions. But we also are facing a reality that remote areas or rural regions have a lack of access to those energy, which remain an important challenge. It is definitely a challenge because we all know that energy development brings also inclusions, economic development, environmental development. It brings to, it's very important for security, but also for social development. And we talk about education or health, but also for cultural development. So access to energy is key. It is today not only a challenge, but a commitment of many important actors, local, industrial, which means global actors. And we are very happy today to welcome 3 of them, with whom we are going to discuss about this energy transition. So I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Sigsbert Mwanga, who is going to address us from Tanzania, and he is Executive Director of Climate Action Network. Welcome, Mr. Mwanga. We are very happy to welcome Mr. Amaury Festenakels, who are the Chief Marketing Officer of Bbox, acting in many different regions and in Africa toward access to energy, but today is talking to us from Kigali in Rwanda. Thank you to be with us. I'm very happy to welcoming you. And our last speaker is Mr. Ebenezer Nyarko Kumi, and he's addressing us from Ghana, and he is involved with Energy for Growth Hub. Again, thank you very much. I will propose that all of you, if you can introduce yourself. I'm going to give the floor first to Mr. Mwanga. Can you give us a little bit more information about the Climate Action Network and your position today and vision toward the energy challenge for Africa? Mr. Mwanga, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored having you well. So thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Sigsbert Mwanga. I work as a director for Climate Action Network Tanzania, a national network, and I think and I do tank, which works much on the environmental and climate change issues. Much of our work concentrates on for adaptation and building resilience, but on adaptation and mitigation, we do much of our work to amplify the role of renewable energy towards addressing energy poverty, but also increasing productivity and indeed promoting socioeconomic development in the country. And with this regard, with the focus to rural areas where majority people have no access to energy, and yeah, so that is it, and that's how that is my organization and the work that much we do.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much, and welcome again. And our second speaker is Mr. Amaury Festenakels. So you are today in Kigali. You are the Chief Marketing Officer of Bbox. Can you give us a little bit more understanding of what doing Bbox today in Africa toward the energy transitions, and what is your key commitments? The floor is yours, Amaury. Thank you.
So yeah, first of all, thanks Jan for organizing this this great podcast. I think it can highlight a lot of great stories and a lot of the progress that some of the East African countries are doing in the energy sector and other sectors. And then I'm really pleased actually to meet Dr. Mwanga and Mr. Kumi, who seem to have a great expertise and will be good to know in the future as well. So a little bit about myself. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Bbox. Bbox, so not so interesting about me, but Bbox is a private company. It's registered in the UK, but with its headquarters in Rwanda. We're in about 7 countries with our own operations. And then we have distributors in another 10 or so countries that work with us. And historically, we started as a startup, very engineering focus coming out of university, and we were manufacturers of solar home systems, so very small systems to help access to electricity in rural areas. One of the things that we noticed being on the system side and trying to sell the systems is that there was some basic offering that needed to happen in order to service and sell those solar systems to bring electricity. The first one was a big need for financing, and we put our system on a pay-as-you-go basis, distribution network within the country, and so sometimes strong partnerships, and then a strong after sales, as we're talking about real electrification and not just a small product that is given and then might break. So since then, we've electrified 2 million people in mostly Kenya, Togo, DRC, Rwanda, and Nigeria. And we're still growing quite strong. Some of our focus, changed a little bit from just electrification. We believe in general, the customer relationship is what we have that is the most differentiating for a company like Bbox and has the most value. So we're able to finance a lot of things to a lot of different customers, and we've started expanding on key issues that our customers face. One of them is clean cooking, where we're going quite strong on LPG. And another one, as an example, is also pay-as-you-go water pumps that we're pushing quite strongly. So that's a little bit about me and about Bbox.
Thank you, Ava-Marie. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting the work Bbox is doing, and to see that you already have strong achievements and in different locations. We will address that in deep review. But thank you very much for joining the talk today. And our last speaker is Mr. Ebenezer Nyarko Kumi. Welcome with us, Mr. Ebenezer Nyarko Kumi. So you work for Energy for Growth Hub. You're based in Ghana. So please, can you give me a little bit of your background, your expertise, where you are involved, and where does this Energy for Growth Hub is coming from? So we'll give you the floor, Mr. Kumi, please.
All right, Jan, thank you very much. Like you mentioned, my name is Ebenezer Nyarko Kumi. I'm based in Ghana, all right. My primary job is a lecturer in the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Ghana. The university's main mandate is to train the next generation of experts, and then also to provide cutting-edge research to support Ghana and Africa's development on energy and natural resources. That is the main mandate of the university, and I've worked here since 2014 in the mechanical engineering department. In the university, there are 2 primary groups. Initially, one was a research group we call the Energy Group. And the Energy Group has been involved in a couple of interesting works, particularly related to renewable energy and rural electrification. For example, we have this cooperation with the China South-South Cooperation to provide solar street lights to various communities. And then also we've been involved in providing solar home systems for remote, particularly island communities. We've been involved in that. And on the other side, we recently had sponsorship from the World Bank to establish the Regional Center for Energy and Environmental Sustainability, where we also are involved in training, particularly postgraduate students on energy and environmental issues. So we have masters in sustainable energy engineering and management. We have masters in environmental engineering and management, as well as PhDs in those areas. And aside training, we are also involved in some research works in these areas of sustainable energy as well as environmental management. So that is my work with the university. When it comes to Energy for Growth Hub, Energy for Growth Hub is a not-for-profit organization that is based in Washington, D.C. It was established about 4 years ago with the executive director, a good friend of mine, Todd Moss. Now, the primary aim of Energy for Growth Hub is to ensure that no person's potential is wasted because there's no power. They are involved in all countries that are the high-end future energy. They need to become prosperous and then competitive. So what the Energy for Growth Hub seeks to do is to bring together expertise like what you're doing. So bring together various expertise to look at how the particularly the less developed countries, the less developed economies, how they can utilize their little energy resources or their energy resources to benefit the masses, particularly those who are in the rural poor communities. So that is what the Energy for Growth Hub is really about. And the hub has fellows from different walks of life, different parts of the world, who in effect share their experiences. So the hub is providing that platform for people to share their experiences when it comes to energy. And what they are doing transcends from policy making all the way to research and development. And I have been involved with the hub since its establishment. So that's a little I'll say about my involvement in the energy space and then the people I have worked with. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumi. Very interesting. I stay with you a minute and continue our discussions. But it's very interesting to see how global you are and your positions as an observer, but as an actor in Ghana is really important. And I heard that you have made a kind of study on the electricity situation in Ghana, very with analyses and with propositions to address the challenges. With Main Africa is really interesting to share experience and to benefit, exactly as you say, of the expertise of everyone. So can you give us a little bit a summarize of what is the situation in Ghana today around toward electricity access, and perhaps to give a little focus about what is the situation in remote areas, and from your study, can you give us a little bit of understanding of what is for you the key element of success that you have been identifying? So we give you the floor, Mr. Kumi, to hear a little bit more about Ghana electricity situations, particularly for remote area, and what is the challenge for tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
The situation in Ghana has improved quite a lot, particularly from the days where we were having serious electricity challenges and we had to go into some form of load management we termed load shedding. Currently, Ghana's electricity access in terms of the population that is having access to electricity is about 85.33%, and this was as at last year. And if you look at the situation as it stands, majority of the urban areas have access to electricity. And in fact, a conversation with the director of renewable and alternative energy at the Ministry of Energy once told me in a personal conversation with him that wherever there is a road network, there is access to electricity. That is how the situation is. So, meaning that the only areas without electricity in the country currently are the areas that don't have road access, that don't have road networks leading to those places. And those places are usually or mostly the island communities, the areas around the Volta Basin, the communities along the Volta Lake. Those are the areas that currently don't have access to electricity. That aside, what is currently being done for those areas is that it doesn't make economic sense to extend the national grid all the way to those places. So what the ministry is doing is currently providing the platform for renewable energy based mini grids to be extended to those areas. So we have a number of communities who have mini grids that have been installed, and the mini grids have some renewable energy and then some diesel generators. So we have solar, we have batteries, we have a diesel genset for those communities, so that they are not completely off, as we will call it. On the other side, Ghana's generation mix has largely been between hydro and then thermal sources. Um, it started with a bulk of it being hydro. Hydro was more than 50%, but as it stands currently, hydro is less than 50%, and thermal is actually generating more than hydro. Thermal has taken over to about 60%, and hydro is around 30 something percent. Even though we have renewable energy sources from large scale solar in the mix, they are not big enough to make any significant contribution to the mix currently. But when we talk about the rural areas, it's mainly the renewable energy cum diesel generator mini grids that are being extended to those areas. Yeah. Now, with regards to the study was done in 2017. That was when the study was published. But following from there till now, if I would talk about the experiences, um, when we had those electricity crisis, the government decided to go through certain transformations. So, for example, as far back as 1990 into the 2000s, there was the energy sector reform. Initially, we had just one system. So there was one company, one government company that was in charge of generation and distribution. But with the energy sector reform, we saw a splitting up of the generation sector from the transmission sector as well as from the distribution sector. So the reason this was done was to make sure that private individuals could also come into play and then get a fair ground to join the mix. So we had Greatco, which owns the national transmission network, at the middle, and they will take from the generators. So we have some government facilities that are into generation of electricity, as well as some other independent power producers, all generate to Greatco, and then they are distributed by two public-owned facilities, Electricity Company of Ghana, and then also the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, which are public-owned for obvious reasons. So when this bundling was done, provided access for independent power producers to also join in the electricity generation sector. And I must say that this has been a major contributor to the 85.33% of access that we have seen, because there are lots of generators who have come into the system, so we would hardly have generation deficit. But as we speak now, our generation capacity, our installed generation capacity outstrips our maximum demand. The last time I checked, we had about twice what we need. The only problem we are having now is with the transmission and distribution networks. Particularly from the distribution end, there have been a lot of losses in the system, both technical losses and then commercial losses. And that is what has been plaguing the system now, because our losses were as high as about 20% in terms of distribution losses. They were as high as 20%. And that had a heavy burden on the distribution companies, which in effect scaled up to the transmission as well as the generation facilities as well. So as it stands now, if we have any power crisis, my candid opinion is that it is not because of lack of generation, but it's because of lack of finances to be able to support the various utilities that are in the system. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've answered your question. So did I leave anything out?
No, it's clear. Thank you, Ebenezer.
Yeah.
I'm sure perhaps the other speaker will have questions for you, because it's really interesting. So Ghana has a real maturity in terms of productions. You say more than 85% of the population have access. It's quite high as a figure, I guess. And it's quite interesting to see just what you mentioned at the end. You know, you produce 2 times what you need. I will see with the other speaker if it's the same in other part of Africa, but we all know that it's one of the biggest challenges. We have the capacity to produce, but we have problem to storage, and most of the time we produce more than what we need, but we have difficulties to get the access.
Yeah, we have almost 2 times the capacity we need, but we don't produce 2 times what we need.
All right, you have the capacity.
Yes, we have the capacity, but not the production.
So the industry needs to investment to be able to use the opportunity of the resources.
Exactly.
Let's compare a little bit. Mr. Mwanga, I give the floor. Doctor, can you give us also a brief situation about Tanzania? How is it regarding what I've been saying, Ebenezer? What is your situation in Tanzania today about access to energy, about remote area and renewable energy? You say in your introductions that climate change issue. You are very focused in amplify the role in renewable energy, increasing productivities. What can we observe in the Tanzania market about energy transition? What's your assets and your needs today? Can you give us a little understanding of your situation, please? I give you the floor, Mr. Mwanga.
Okay, so thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying that nationally, even globally, there has been a lot of effort to bring energy solutions at the center, of course. And for me, I think these are the solutions that can twist the present trajectories towards a more inclusive energy for socioeconomic growth for all. And with that, then the role of adequate, reliable, affordable energy access, indeed as a basic need for socioeconomic growth, job creation, and sustainability is of more important. That's what we think, and that is the big deal at CAN Tanzania. Now coming to the energy challenges in this country, I thought it is, I also think it is very important to give the current national energy picture, and not in terms necessarily in terms of numbers, but in how socially energy is conceptualized. First is that the country has abundant energy sources, and of course, which are not really tapped. These are not tapped. And for me, if they are well tapped, it could really promote the socio-economic transformation needed. And the other characteristic, the other picture of energy is that with all the abundance, still energy, the still scarce and limited. And then, in this regard, for me, is both the renewable sources and sources. And that's still even in the and sometimes of low quality. With that, then, in terms of cooking, then there's still a good number of communities who are still using firewood and the charcoal for cooking. With that, then this is really leading into serious deforestation and linked, of course, to land use change. And the other picture, I think, when we look at the energy, the model is still the one which was inherited during from the colonial to the recent eras, and does not necessarily fit the local specific purposes. There's still another challenge, I think, which is or the other picture which I personally see is of treating energy as an independent sector, as opposed to seeing it as a enabler or which is connected to other sectors. So if I were to summarize the challenge, especially in rural areas, there's still the issue of energy access. So, and I see energy being limited, still limited and fragmented, so to speak. And there's still I believe the model of energy access is still offering more room. The thinking is still of writing, as opposed to using energy in the productive sector focus or promoting the socio-economic. Even the private sector itself is of strengthening its muscles, what I might call controlling the neoliberal dogma kind of thinking. So they want to become giant and control the money, as opposed to see how this is connected to socio-economic transformation. Understanding that the rural area of my country, Tanzania, that the population is super dispersed to the extent that the grid extension model could not meet the demand, as even mentioned by Ebenezer. With that, if you extend the national grid, you should expect first the system end up becoming super expensive, and with the limited resources, then the crisis, then you limit the access. And as I said, seeing energy as an end by itself has been a challenge, instead of seeing it as an enabler, which could be a key precondition in the strategic element for socio-economic of growth. So those the characteristics and the energy situation in brief. And so much of our proposals and where do we see, I think the government should be playing the role and all the stakeholders. And for us, first, I think, is to bring up the appropriate the availability of relevant technology. I wouldn't spend much of my time talking about the national grid because everyone is in support of it and the government is already putting a lot of money and subsidy and whatever. But here I'm referring to the off-grid and the mini-grid, as I mentioned, but then the issue of appropriate technology, which is not super expensive. But again, working now, harmonizing the policies so that, and making sure that the energy which is accessed by people is people-centered. And also there could be now seeing the issue from first internally and in all sectors is budget for, and of course it cuts across, and it shouldn't be a challenge for Minister for Health if to keep on waiting the Minister for Energy to plan for years before they wait for the national grid, while there could be some saving for, and they talk to each other, and including the private sector, they bring all the finance, and then they provide electricity first to the health centers which are found in rural areas or schools and whatever. But again, I think it's very important to guide suitable and the local, to have local specific models. As you can imagine, it's such huge, it's big, it's a big country with different, each different ecological zones and whatever, and each part has its own local specific energy or whatever. And for me, I think it makes sense now to make sure that these local specific models are put into consideration as opposed to use one model for the whole country. And also that also the government is also to make sure that the stakeholders and whatever, and the government provides to provide such an conducive environment for diverse interactions of actors and, as I said, the interventions. Also amplifying, I think, the notion of accessibility as not necessarily within the definition itself, the way, the definition, because the access sometimes is the definition as opposed to the actual thing. They count how many meters, if you are in this range and whatever, then you have access. But when you go to the, they say in this village, this maybe 5,000 villages have access to electricity. But when you go to the village, there are only out of, let's say, 1,000 households, only 10 or 20 households have access to electricity, and they are happy celebrating. I think that narrative needs to be changed and questioned and changed. Also, as I said, the availability, affordability, also the affordability is very important, not seeing all the poles or extending the grid, but what is it that the communities are doing with the electricity, and how, or they're always calling people who are living in town to help them to pay the bill. As I said, also linking, also we still need to work with the government and other stakeholders now to increase the productive use. Also accommodate social ownership and management, and you see all this, and we have people like Box coming up now to see now giving power to empowering the community to own the system on their own. And this also, as I said, includes should include the physical availability, infrastructure, and all this affordable. Also controlling the quality and not necessarily the quantity, reliability issues. Also, I think for us, so as we talk of the social issues, also there is the issue of adequate acceptability, and also we are very much concerned of green. Not, we don't care if we have how many megawatts, but the question remains: where do you get, where the generation issue where do you get, what are the source of energy and whatever. And then the other question is to make sure that we link the national, so the energy into community and the national long-term growth trajectories. So making sure that the energy is very well connected and informing the growth of the country, as opposed to treating it as on its own. Yeah, I will stop here at the moment. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwanga. Very interesting. I just take out one point you mentioned, but there is a lot of things you address which are key. It's adaptation to the local ecosystem, and you also talk about habits, changing the habits. You talked about clean cooking, and I think Amaury also mentioned that on his introduction. So adaptation to local system is key, taking into consideration the assets, the resources, the need of the populations, the way population is consuming energy. So all the ecosystem needs to be understood. And you also at the end mentioned a little bit about cooperation between stakeholder, and I want to jump on that perhaps with Mr. Fastenackels. Yes, so Amaury, that's a point for you. You are addressed in 7 different countries today. You've been giving access to 2 million people for electrification, which is very impressive. To reach those goals, how did you address international partnership or cooperation? What is a key point for you for an operator who wants to bring solutions, who have been bringing solutions for 2 million people? What is the key element of the cooperations in line with what Mr. Mwanga has been said? Can you explain a little bit how BBox is working on this stage and create this platform which makes things moving forward?
Absolutely. No, I think, I mean, both Mr. Kumi and Dr. Mwanga's points have been very interesting. I mean, Ghana is on one side of the spectrum with a really good electrification rate. And I think Dr. Mwanga had a good point. Like, energy is not an end. I mean, it's rather an enabler for other things like ending, some prosperity. Then you still need to define what prosperity is, of course. And what we do is that when we also sell system, we try to bring as much electrification, but we're basically a more economic way to electrify population rather than doing it on the grid. So I mean, there is two sides of the coin in terms of partnerships. We have to align on one side as a private company the financing and in terms of equity, in terms of debt, to be able to make this possible. But then on the other side, we need to align local governments to make sure that we fit within their electrification plan. So first, going on the funding side, I mean, we've been partnering with large industrial players such as Mitsubishi, EDF, Électricité de France, or Engie, in order to set up either individual companies or investing at a group in order to make those projects realize. And that's, I think, has been really important. And I think for the future of a lot of the countries where we work, it's a good advantage to have those big players coming in for the long term and able to invest money first in solar home systems, but also sometimes they have an interest in looking outside, maybe in grid extension and other things like this. I mean, one of the examples is in Togo, we're interested in mini grids, for example, which is a bit of an extension of solar home systems. Then on the side of the government and local partnership, I think it's absolutely critical. I mean, we have the know-how, the expertise, and that's what we bring. But at the end of the day, we need to integrate within the local framework and the plan of the local government. And so we do work pretty closely with the right ministries and the right people at the government in order to and both fit within the program, but also design a subsidy program that will accelerate the access to energy. If we're serious in reaching SDG 7 by 2030, which is universal access to electricity, the sad reality is that the full private sector model is not going to work. The people that are under $1 per day are not going to be able to afford good quality solar home systems, which might have advantages in terms of prosperity. So we've been working with different governments quite a lot on subsidy programs that fit within their strategy. So I mean, in a few examples that are worth talking about, in Togo, there is extremely good leadership in terms of electrification, and there is a great subsidy program that was launched, which is called the CISO program. And it's really focused on digitalizing all of the aspects of the subsidy, so it's very low touch, and enabling a large percent of the population to get electricity. Other examples, I mean, we take a lot of the expertise that we take from one country and then try to share it to other governments. But every government obviously has their own emergencies and priorities for electrification. And in DRC, we've been participating in Form Winda, which is another subsidy program that is being launched that has a very strong ambition to electrify 10 million Congolese citizens, and I think that's something that we're one of the first companies to participate in and really support, and we always praise the leadership, of the governments leading those programs. So those are a bit the two, aspects on both sides of the spectrum where we very, very strong partnerships.
We have been losing a little bit the connection at the end, but we get you, Amaury. Thank you for sharing those experiences. Finally, through those partnerships, even if you have major international organizations active with you in the country, finally, the result of those partnerships is you are creating more ownership in each country and more local commitments or involvement. So it's really dedicated to empower the local system.
Yeah, and the way that we do it is that people own their system. So at the end of the day, like the end customer is really in control of their power and in control of choosing whoever the supplier is. So we avoid at least this problem with public or NGOs participation in the market.
Very, very clear. Thank you very much. So people taking control of their power, that's really interesting, specifically in remote area, because that means that it could be perfectly adapted to their environment and to their needs. I know, Mr. Kumi, that you have been developing a solution around mixed energy to facilitate those control of power locally. Can you tell us a little bit more about the solution bring by mixed energy, its impact in remote area? What is your final visibility on the impact of mixed energy in remote area? Can you discuss a little bit about that, Mr. Kumi?
Yes, Jan, thank you. And Amori, that was a good presentation there. I want to pick on something that Amori said. The challenge I find with the people taking control of their power is that most of these people are the rural poor. So they are actually the poor people in the society. And it's a bit difficult for them to be able to raise up some of the capitals that are needed for the kinds of things that we would want to offer them in terms of solution. I would like to hear how BBox is working around that. But on your question, Jan, I would want to go back to the situation we are using in Ghana, for instance. Our mini grids are not one technology based mini grids. So there are some mixed sources. We have diesel generators as part of the mix. We have solar energy as part of the mix. We have battery banks as part of the mix. And that is actually the minimum that we have for the various mini grids. And currently there are about 5 of those mini grids in operation, and they are supposed to serve as a pilot for an upscaling, because there are about over 60 communities that are in similar situations. So the little from these experiences is that once you have a mixed source mini grid, you are assured of electricity almost every time of the day. The only challenge with this approach is the fact, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that the end users of this electricity are normally the poorer folks. And this is supposed to help boost their economic lives so that they can use the electricity for more profitable, more economic related ventures. Um, if we consider the cost of these technologies or the cost of these solutions to the target areas, I mentioned this earlier, it really doesn't make economic sense. So the approach the government of Ghana is using currently that level of subsidies for the rural folks to be able to meet up with their electricity obligations. And that is how these are going, because if we are to leave it to the private companies to also set their own tariffs for how much the rural folks pay for electricity, Jan would let you know that it's not possible for the rural folks to be able to pay those levels of electricity, because even when we come to the urban areas, even at the urban centers, there's still some level of subsidies for the urban rural folks who are mostly the poorer in the society. So what we are doing is that the government is providing some level of subsidy and also providing some fair playing field, so that even though private investors are going into mini grids, they can be able to recoup at least to be able to break even and recoup their investments into those areas. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ebenezer.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can reverse to you, Amori, around the questions of Ebenezer. It's right that in remote area, it's poor people with specific economic model. The cost to get access to energy are sometimes not adapted to the local situations, even if this energy can bring development and can bring access to many important opportunities. I think that was the questions of Ebenezer to you, Amori. How does BBox is trying to, if I understood well, building a local economic model which is is going to facilitate this ownership of the local people?
No, it's a very good question. I think it comes back to also what Mr. Kumi was finishing with, is with the I mean, as an example, I mean, the mini-grid economics is it stays affordable to a population that doesn't have much money, and it is expensive. And so, like, for mini-grids, it's very clear that for it to make sense at any level, you need government subsidy, which helps a lot. For solar home systems, the economics are quite good thanks to pay-as-you-go model. So we let our customers pay for the day of electricity that they use, and so it is financed over a certain period of time that depends a bit on the country. And our customers will pay a small deposit to join the service, and then afterwards we'll pay everything on a pay-as-you-go basis. So daily payments starting at maybe 10 cents US dollar per day as the cheapest one. So that's a big enabler to be able to finance something with so much flexibility. It's not like a loan. People really pay based on what they need and what they have. And on top of it, I think, so that's the financing is the first enabler. The second one is government subsidy to get to real electrification, 100%. I think from our studies, we get to about 43% of the population that could acquire our systems based on their income. But what do we do with the other 57% that needs to be reached with subsidy, which is a lot of people. And then the third lever that we try to focus on is, I mean, our tagline at Bbox is unlocking potential, and we do try to live this value in our business. And so we create a lot of appliances and products that have the capability to regenerate revenue. So, for example, we have one of the largest program of a water pump. We have other appliances that, for example, you can set up a business to charge phones, or have a salon, a haircutting business. And so all of these micro enablers allow people to make a little bit more money. And one of the most powerful one probably is the fact that all of our customers are now have a formal contract and have a data that goes to us, and so we know them extremely well. We know how much people use as power, but we know especially their payment capability. And so we've started giving loans to our customers that are just cash loans without any financing of assets or anything like this, which is not something we used to do before. But a lot of it, we hope, is used for economic enabling activities.
Clear, thank you. Do you want to react on that? Perhaps Dr. Mwanga, perhaps you want to give a little bit emphasis on this adaptation to local model or local ecosystem. What is for you and in Tanzania, in remote area, what has been the key success to really facilitate this access to energy on your side?
Yeah, so thank you so much to all the contributors. I think we have seen some who are either we might consider they are still able to, if they are a bit supported, they are able to own the process and and they really take forward the initiative, provided that first, as I said, is the issue of acceptability, how like they accept to the extent that someone is available and happy to die for it because he or she knows the benefit of the system and how can that transfer, shift him from the point A where he is to point B. And I think Amount has put it very clear. And so what is very important, I think, is to give the community confidence and bring the technology which is really accepted and avoid what we are seeing now in the, I'm sorry to mention this, what they call the Chinese products, because of the products have been a challenge. But if you bring the technology which is very accommodative and such strong to sustain the waves, then it should be able. And then, as the colleagues have said, we shouldn't be owning the process. Then it shouldn't be thought in the very short term. That we still need to be seeing far beyond 5, 6, 7, 10 years, 20. And with that, then they will still own the process. And yeah, so yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. It's really interesting. Time is running so fast; it's crazy, but but we have to take that in consideration. So we know that there is in Africa the right resources to produce electricity, to have power available. We have seen that you guys are really involved to find adapted local solutions, which is going through technology, which is going through economic model, but also a kind of educational processes I want to perhaps to mention, because you are, as you say, Mr. Mwanga, creating confidence around those technology, around those models, so people can really preserve this capacity to have ownership in producing electricity. There is a lot more to say, but before closing the talk, I would like to have, and I will start with you, Amaury, a kind of feedback on your observations on the impact. Those access to energy have created major opportunity, major innovations locally, in the village, in the family. It changed the paradigm of development. Can you just quickly share with us what is for you the key point of observation you could see as a positive transformation of the economic, social, and cultural environment of those remote areas which have been accessing to energy and which have been changing their habits? You can go through clean cooking, as you mentioned, which seems a bit singular, but so important because it's impact to the ecosystem directly. So, so my question for all of you, one by one, will be clearly and quickly, what is for you the main opportunity you've been created locally thanks to your offers? Amaury, perhaps first.
Very quickly on my side, I mean, I'll try to be brief. With clean cooking, the impact is very, very clear and measurable in terms of health and in terms of environment. For electricity, I mean, there is a lot of benefit that we know in terms of fire risk, health, but it is a bit harder to measure. And I think one of the lack of research that exists is, especially on solar home system, is a strong quantitative proven link between prosperity and the electrification with through solar home system. A lot of the research is focused on GDP growth through electrification with the grid. So welcome Dr. Mwanga, if he can build some research on this. That would be a very strong supporting argument for the industry.
You can be in touch, isn't it, Dr. Mwanga, with all of you. We'll put you in touch, definitely. Mr. Kumi, for you, what is your great satisfactions, I will say, in terms of impact you've been observing with Growth Hub in your work?
That I would say is the level of interest and then the level of involvement that we are gathering, particularly from a research field. Yes, that is a great story that I think it's encouraging for me in the line of work I'm in, because you see a lot of young people willing to get involved in research into energy issues and see how we can all together bring to an end the challenges that we have on the African continent. But I would tend to agree strongly with Amori on the fact that even though we have that interest in research, funding for research is terribly low, if non-existent, because from an institution, the institution I come from, most of our funds for research are coming from Europe, they're coming from America. None of them is coming from the one African country or the other. No, they are all coming from somewhere. And once it's coming from there, the expectations are that the solutions will meet their expectations and not the situation here. I would be happier to see Africans putting money into African research to bring an end to an African problem, because once an African is bringing money to research,
Ebenezer, we've losing you.
Encouraging factor is the fact that a lot of people are interested in energy nowadays, and people would want to get into research in those areas. Yeah,
that's really interesting, and with Made in Africa, we share totally your vision and your observations in terms of mobilization, commitment, engagement, and to demonstrate that today we say many times there is the resources, but there is the competencies, the capacity, and the wish to find solutions from Africa with the African actor, entrepreneur, innovator, and all of that in great cooperations. So I agree. That's a very positive observations. And Mr. Mwanga, for your point, what will be your main satisfaction on the impact you've been creating so far?
Thank you so much. As I said, first is to see and appreciate the role of the mini grid is playing to, first of all, to solve or to bring to embrace the socioeconomic transformation, especially in rural areas, and to really make sure shift the narrative from thinking of energy from lightning into socioeconomic development, which is very important. Trying to address communities' challenges. My mother in a rural area, since then, she's not interested to light the house and sleep. She doesn't know how to read. Her interest is to see what is it that the energy can help her to solve her challenges of water shortage, cooking, as Amor has mentioned, irrigation, food storage, and all these things which are very much important. And the last, I think, what is very important, and as my colleagues have mentioned, we also is to think on how to actually ask our government, apart from expecting as much as they expect money from other sources and the outside for bilateral and the GCF and other available sources, we still need to be putting some budget in our local sources to make sure that we that contributes to our socioeconomic development. And in this regard, amplifying the role of off-grid and the mini-grids. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, I think our talk arrived to an end, but I would like to take 2 more minutes, if I may, before thanking everybody, just to give you last time the floor, because you've been talking about your commitments to help electrifications and to provide this amazing opportunity for Africa, in Africa. I want to give you 2 times the floor about your personal challenges today. Make a call for actions. What is your need? How can we help you? Okay, we'll answer to put you in connections, you, Amaury, with Sixbert and Benezer. Perhaps there is an opportunity for you to work together in the future, but I would like to give you 1 more minute, the floor to each of you 3 to tell us what is your needs, your challenge, and to give your conclusions. Let's start with you, Mr. Kumi. How can we help the Energy for Growth Hub today?
I think research, I'll talk about research because I'm a researcher. I think from where I sit, research into the issues that we have it's the foundation.
Okay.
Because most of these economies have spent monies into coming up with new technologies. They've spent monies into going into what exactly the problems are, the causes and all that. And that is something that we lack here. It's actually very difficult to have opportunities for research, especially when it comes to the funding aspects of it. Most of the works I'm doing in my university here, I'm having to fund them on my own.
Okay.
But I think I could have done better if there was an opportunity for funds to come in. Yes, they could have done a much better and a much bigger job. Yeah. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you for putting the emphasis on research. Congratulations for your commitments. And you know, the fact that you are investing in your activity is a fantastic mobilization for investor, because it guarantees your strong commitments. Thank you, Mr. Kumi, for your participation. Dear Mr. Mwanga, how can we help Climate Action Network tomorrow or today? How can we make your work more impactful?
Yeah, so thank you so much. First and foremost, as you would have seen, is continue having such a kind of platforms where we share the work and find the solutions together. When you hear what is happening, and they can there's still it's not a matter of presenting, but there's still some rooms to learn. And the other thing for us, I think, is to be able now to bring about some pilot projects on the ground which provide solutions, and this is how we build confidence. Because going to a village A and saying this is a technology will bring this and this, they will still need to ask where did this happen, and you need to showcase. So I think attracting some financial resources now to bring about this pilot projects on the ground, which indeed gonna again inform the policies, and in that then we are able to even make sure that this kind of pilot projects could inform the policies. With that, then we are able to attract internal resources, because you increase confidence not only to the communities but to the policymakers and the decision makers, because they would have seen all these pilot projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. And to conclude, Amaury, I give you the floor about how the challenge of BBOX. What is your? I will put in touch with Mr. Kumi and Mr. Mwanga, and I'm sure you can share a background and experience. But what is the challenge of BBOX tomorrow?
I'm sure we'll be able to talk a lot. I mean, I echoed the need for research, and I think I mentioned the critical link between prosperity and energy access. that is still missing a little bit, although we all know that it exists. My big ask is, especially in light of the current spending that governments have been able to do for COVID and the effort that the world has been able to put into place for vaccine accessibility, I think it puts numbers and efforts into perspective, right? We've spent, tens of trillions of dollars on the economy in the West, and the same on vaccine. The fact is, electrification is only 1% or 0.1% of this kind of budget for the whole of Africa. I'm not advocating for donor money. I'm advocating for patient, long-term debt that both governments and private companies can use in order to really push the boundaries and within 5, 6, 10 years get to universal electrification. I think that's the big thing we need to get to.
Yeah, totally agree. This is part of the vision we share. It's today. It's not a question of donation or help. It's a question of investment. There is many opportunity in the African continent to make development from Africa, and this needs investment, and this investment will have an impact not only on the society, but it will have a financial return and financial impact for the people who are going to finance those developments. Once again, thank you, Mr. Dr. Sigsbert Mwanga. Thank you, Mr. Ebenezer Kumi. Thank you, Amaury Fastenackles. Congratulations for your commitments. Thank you very much for joining the Plug Talk and to give your experience on this energy transition and access to rural opportunity or remote area to get access to energy. Thank you very much. We all wish you a fantastic afternoon. We look forward to seeing you soon for the next Plug Talk, which is going to be announced and will be about digital transitions. We wish you a very nice afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you soon in our platform. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.